Good day, dear colleagues. Today, I'm presenting a very interesting topic that's going to continue something that we started talking about at the beginning of the conference. We're going to be talking about careers guidance through the eyes of the parents. Why through the parents? Because everything in the lives of our children starts from the parents. We start with the parent and then we talk about the child. So the question I have for you is, do you think about careers guidance? And it's the parents who usually think about careers guidance. Starting this year, our government has started also thinking about careers guidance. And since all of us are educators, I'd like to come back to the idea that even the government has realized now how important it is to give our learners some information about what professions they can choose, what careers they can choose. And as of the 1st of September this year, there's going to be a single model of careers guidance that's going to be working in the Russian Federation. And it's a program that will last up until grade 11. This program of career guidance has been part of our school program for years and years. But at the government level, this is the first time that this has happened. In this model, we're going to be looking, and we're going to be working with 3 levels of educational organizations: the basic level, the general level, and the advanced level. These are the 3 levels of career guidance programs in Russian schools as of this year. The difference is in the number of hours dedicated to career guidance. There are 7 areas of focus that these career guidance programs are going to be focusing on. So the preparatory professional classes. In the past, we used to have these only for the humanities, but now there are going to be many more subjects, including engineering, medicine, space exploration, IT, education, and entrepreneurship. These are some new areas because these professions are in demand on the market. Second of all, teachers are mostly concerned with giving lessons. Therefore, there are certain resources available for teachers to conduct lessons on careers guidance. There is a fund of the humanities projects, which includes over 100,000 hours of videos and materials for career guidance to be used in schools. And of course, step number 3 and stage number 3 is extracurricular activities. These are chapels, various meetings between teachers, parents, learners, and so on, discussions, workshops that will help students decide on their future career. And of course, bringing, children's upbringing is also an important aspect of this all. There are different open doors days organized by various universities, different competitions, and events where learners can look at how people of different professions work. There are various programs connected to career guidance that can be implemented in schools. There's interaction with parents that is also a key part of it. These are the requirements for implementing such career guidance programs in a school. The next thing I'd like to focus on is what career guidance is. We can look at it from different points of view. So first of all, careers guidance is aimed at helping an individual choose a profession, taking into account their talents, their inclinations, their abilities. From the point of view of economics, it is the process of managing the career choices of young people, because the government has a certain need of individuals in different professions, a different percentage needed for each of those professions. And finally, when we talk about the social dimension, we talk about developing values. I think it may be also interesting to think about the history of career guidance. When did we start dividing into different professions? It turns out that professions came about when people started doing various things. Some were hunting, some were catching fish, some were doing something around the house. We could say that these were the first jobs that people, the first professions that people took up. And there was a kind of inheritance in all of this. So if the father was a hunter, it is very likely that their son would also be a hunter. Over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, our society has developed many more professions. There are more people who study these different professions and different fields of knowledge. Galton, Munstenberg, and Terman are considered the fathers of careers guidance. They were the first to develop certain psychological tests that helped individuals determine which profession was best for them. And around that time, when these professionals, these scholars were at work, this is the late 19th century, in Russia, the first careers guidance also came about. If we think about today, there are plenty of organizations that study various professions, that study their origins, that study where we're going. And you can see on the screen the tree of the development of professions. We can see how the hunters and the gatherers later gave rise to all sorts of different professions. Priests, chiefs, guards, merchants, agrarians, veterinarians, builders, doctors. So those who were originally gatherers, for instance, could then go into agriculture. And today there are many, many more professions available. And they all came from the hunters and the gatherers. Next, I'd like to say a few words just for those of you who have something to do with careers guidance. There are certain names and certain facts that are worth knowing. I've already mentioned 3 people who are considered the fathers of careers guidance programs. The first one is Francis Galton. He lived in the 19th century. He made a breakthrough in his research by publishing research on human ability and its development. He was the first individual to start scientifically describing human ability and their activity. Another interesting fact about this person is that he was Charles Darwin's cousin. So he came from a scholarly background. The next researcher I'd like to mention is Hugo Munstenberg. He took this a step further, and he helped employers hire those employees who were the most apt for this or that profession. So he was the first professional HR manager, if you will. He would match the person's abilities to the job that they were doing. The third scholar that I'd like to mention is Lewis Terman, who lived up to the middle of the 20th century. He developed the idea of psychological testing. He develops certain personality tests and aptitude tests. He developed Binet's system. Binet is the author of the IQ test. He is known for his experiment in California in 1926, where he selected 147 people who had an IQ of over 140 points. He studied these people for a number of years, and the aim of this research was to identify how these intellectual abilities help them in their future life. All in all, these people were more or less successful in life. However, we cannot say that they were happier than others. They had a similar rate of divorce as other people, a similar rate of drug addiction, alcohol addiction. It was not anywhere different from the average. As a result of this experiment, many similar experiments were conducted in order to find out how intellectual ability affects the success of a person in life. In 1997, there was a lady, Sophie Lussoff, who was mentioned in many British newspapers. She studied at Oxford, and she entered Oxford at 13 years old. However, she did not become a scholar, and as a result, she resorted to sex work because it was something that she could control. And her biggest regret in life was that as of 11 years old, she studied nothing but mathematics. And when she looked back on her life, she realized that she had seen nothing of life. She'd seen nothing of the world. She had no friends. And she had no regrets about leaving the academic world. Ultimately, she became a social worker. There's also William Sidis. He was an American prodigy. His IQ was around 300 points. This is the highest IQ registered in the world ever. And there's a couple of interesting facts about him. At the age of a year and a half, he was able to read the New York Times. After that, he wrote, when he was 5, he read Homer. He read Aristotle at 6 years old and became an atheist. And soon after, he published his own books, including a book on anatomy. He entered Harvard to study medicine at like 8 years old, and he knew several languages. He ended up speaking about 40 languages. And he graduated from Harvard with distinction at the age of 16. Regardless of his intellectual ability and his success, he could not find the right job for him. He was a teaching assistant of mathematics. He worked in sales and didn't really find his vocation. The reason I talk about these things is that intellectual ability is not necessarily a determiner of success in life. And this is something that needs to be made very clear when we talk to parents. So how do we talk to the parents of our learners when we deal with careers guidance? Coming back to the topic of our conference, it's 3D, doing, dreaming, discussing. Careers guidance is all about this process. It's about dreaming or thinking. They're thinking about what they're going to do in life. Then they act, they do something in order to achieve this. And finally, they reach their goals. In the context of what they are doing, in the context of what they are thinking about what their child needs. As a result, parents believe that their child needs to enter a certain university, and in order to do that, they need to pass certain exams. And so the parents choose a particular school for their child. That's where we come in. In the International School of Tomorrow, as in many private schools, we have a kind of individualized approach to the parents. We do not compare children one to another because every parent is interested in hearing about the progress of their own child. Sometimes sometimes parents may have information that's not quite the truth. They may be ignorant of some things that we have greater expertise in. Because we are an international school, it is very important for us to take into account religious and cultural peculiarities. We should also be able to communicate with the parents on the basis of this knowledge that we have. Why is it so important to take into account cultural peculiarities, national peculiarities? Because various countries, people from different countries have ideas, their own ideas about what professions are prestigious. In certain African countries, for instance, the most prestigious profession, do you know which one it is? Doctor. For an African, one of the most prestigious professions is becoming a doctor. So if an African student comes into our school, we are 99% sure that their parents probably want them to enter a medical university. If we talk about American society, some of the most prestigious and well-paid jobs are doctors and lawyers. And although there are very many doctors and lawyers, it's still very much in demand, and people strive for it. So if you're working with parents, what do you need to know? You need to know who the leader kind of in the family is, who makes the decisions regarding the child's education is. Because sometimes we might see only the father, and the father is a sole decision maker in the family. This will affect how this child lives their life and how this family operates. This is the mode of education, upbringing that they're going to be giving to this child. This will also depend on the parent's educational level. In our school, we have many students from India. And in Indian families, the fathers are often the ones to make the decisions, whereas the mothers are kind of in the background and sometimes have a rather low, a rather limited educational background. This is something to take into account when talking to these parents, because they might not be on the same page with you regarding careers guidance, for instance. So you might be talking to them at the level of your own expertise, but this doesn't mean it's going to be effectively communicated because due to their background. It is also important to understand that if if religion plays an important role in a family, there will be certain limitations. Only certain professions will be considered appropriate for girls, for instance, and other professions will be considered appropriate for boys. We can categorize the parents that we work with into several categories. There are parents who are kind of self-made. They are real professionals who would like their children to become professionals as well. As a rule, these parents support their children in their striving to become greater professionals, being good at their studies, taking part in various projects. It's generally easy to work with such parents because they understand what the school's aims are. The second category of parents are parents that have status. They believe that their social status will help them get a good standing for their children as well. If they are embassy workers or they work in a government institutions, they have the opportunity to get their child into various institutions, into various places. Some parents are entrepreneurs who believe that the knowledge that children get at school is not so important. What matters most is their business skills. There are some parents who believe that school education is not so important. What matters the most is generating profit. And if we look at certain business people and you ask them what's more important, business or education, they might say business, making money. And then if you can study somewhere, great. But if you have a talent for entrepreneurship, then that's what you should be doing, is what they might say. And there are also parents who are government officials. Their life is full of stability and guarantees. They know that they are going to have a happy and comfortable retirement. And their children usually go to management school. And sometimes you ask such a child and you say, imagine you'll be working at one of those document centers in Moscow. It's a good job. It's a very useful job, but it's a service job. Can you imagine yourself sitting there the entire day, talking to people, helping them with their paperwork? Can you imagine such a life for your child? And sometimes it makes me sad. It makes me sad when parents say, yeah, that's fine because at least that provides some kind of stability. All these four categories of parents really care about one and the same thing. They are all thinking about their child's future. They want to get answers to their questions. What kind of profession is the best for my child? There are over 50,000 professions in the world. The reason there's so many is because within every field, there are 10, 15 new professions emerging every day. There are 7,000 professions registered in Russia to this day. There's a book. So when you, in your so-called labor book, the record that you get, the name of the job that you get comes from that official list of 7,000 jobs. Of course, parents want their children to have a profession that's well paid, that provides certain career opportunities, that provides guaranteed employment. When parents would come to us for careers guidance, there was one of their children did ice skating. And I said, so you want you take your child to ice skating lessons. You want her to be an Olympian. And they said, no, no, no. We started her too late for that. We want her to become a trainer because being a trainer in ice skating is a profession that's never going to die out. So if the child doesn't mind, that's okay. All career guidance professionals now say that parents need to take into account three factors: want, can, and must. So sometimes they, they need to have a look at what's possible, what the student can do at this point in life. For instance, now we have to conduct several meetings with parents because the parents of some of our students have decided a profession for their children. Let's say they want their child to become an engineer, but the child is not really good at maths. So it makes sense to talk to the parents and clarify these things with them. Since this is all very relevant to all of us, it's important to know what research is available today. What's the easiest profession at present? Because we talked about how young people today want to work just a little bit, just enough. So what are some of the easiest jobs today? Copywriting, writing texts, writing reports, managing reports, web designer, SMM specialists, social media marketing persons, programmers, interior designers. These are professions that you can obtain by studying on your own, like taking an online course. And it's something that you can actually earn money from. There are also jobs that have very few specialists around the world. For example, a researcher of pandas, or water slide tester, or someone who pilots a hot air balloon, or a bullfighter, or a manager of an exotic island. There are not very many exotic islands around the world, so we can draw the conclusion that there are not very many managers around the world. And there's a tester of luxury bedding and sleepwear. Probably not a lot of specialists around the world. I was in several shops and out of curiosity, I asked how much this luxury bedding cost. And it turned out that the price was 50,000 rubles or higher. And Miss Julie is actually giving a low price. I saw some bedding for like 1 million rubles. Professional hugger. I kept wondering what this profession was. It turns out that it's a thing. There are many people who don't get enough hugs. Maybe they don't have a very good relationship with their family and they can hire someone to hug them. And so one woman started this trend. She put out an ad saying that she would hug someone, you know, for a fee, and it's become a thing. This is a profession that allows her to, to live the life that she wants, to take care of her child, and she perhaps also does some studying on the side. Oh, there's also the profession of someone who makes cigars. And like I said, a pilot of a hot air balloon. There's only like one or two hot air balloons in all of Moscow region. How many operators do we have? And of course, if you ask the population, there was a survey done about the hardest jobs. So people consider the hardest job to be that of a cosmonaut or astronaut. They can be, these professions can be difficult intellectually or physically. So here we have doctor, firefighter, miner, IT specialist, pilot, lawyer, defense attorney, and scholar. If we think into the future, we need to think about which professions are considered to be the most useful or will be the most useful. And if we talk about the professions that are in most demand, these are doctors, engineers, programmers, builders, cooks, drivers. Because we're always going to be in need of some food, we're going to be in need of a place to live and travel somewhere. That's why we need drivers. We want to keep ourselves in shape. That's why we need medical professions. Another term we might use are useful professions. Again, doctors top the list. So if you want to dedicate your life to working in this field, you are probably going to be in demand wherever you go. I would also like to say that teachers take second place. We come right after doctors. So we're still going to be there. We are going to be needed. And the third category of most useful professions are rescue workers. Because when a natural disaster happens, when a war strikes, that's where these rescue workers come in. If we come back to that number I quoted at the beginning, 50,000 professions, of course, this number is ever changing because some professions cease to exist, other professions are born, and some of the professions that exist today will also disappear in the years to come. There is a list of jobs that will still be available and in demand in the next 100 years for sure. Specialists on information security, because, well, doctors, of course, top the list. They always top the list. About 5 years ago, information security specialists became a new thing that people would receive training for at Russian universities. We know that the internet can be, a diverse place. There's some danger lurking out there as well. So it's really important for information specialists to step in and protect citizens, protect their organizations. That's why this profession is as relevant as it ever was. Engineers are always going to be in demand. Teachers, law, defense attorneys, therapists, psychologists, financial consultants, and professional athletes. You might not become an Olympian, but you might become a trainer. I've already mentioned a therapist. I've actually read that therapists form one of the top 3 professions that are in demand. I never used to think it was anything serious. I used to think that therapists are people who just talk to other people for money and don't actually do anything useful. But now I see that there is a need. I see that children have various special needs, special educational needs, children with autism. They can greatly benefit from the work of these professionals. There are also some professions that are good for women. So if you want to recommend a job for a woman, okay, guess what's at the top of the list? Doctors. So IT engineer, biotechnology specialist, IT manager, PR specialist, financial advisor, dentist, banker. And what are the professions that AI and robots will not take over? Again, at the top of the list, surprise, surprise, doctors and nurses. Actually, delivery service workers and people who pick your orders are always going to be in demand because although there is talk about drones delivering goods to your door, we're still going to need people, at least in the near future. We're still going to need real people to pick our orders and deliver them. There was a push at some point to make education completely online, but recent experience and recent research has said that mm, people need real life teachers as well. So we cannot just use AI. We cannot just use online tests to help our students learn. They need real teachers. They need real people to form those bonds with them to facilitate their learning. I would like you to get something practical out of this session today, so that you would leave this room with some answers for your parents who will come to you and ask about careers guidance for their children. So you can confidently answer questions about which professions are in demand, which professions are useful, which are well paid, which are highly rated. Let's talk about money. So which professions are the best paid in Russia in 2023? So number 1 is a financial analyst. So if our young people want to earn a lot of money, they need to be aware of which jobs are the best paid jobs. And if they want to if they want to get this job, they need to get the proper training. So, as I said, topping the list is financial analyst. They need to study maths. It's not easy, but they can end up having a very high salary. Another one is pilot. They should not only have good academic skills, but also be very healthy, lead a healthy lifestyle. Another well-paid job is in oil and gas. And that's why the Oil and Gas Institute is one of the most in demand universities. So if you don't want to sit in an office all day, why not go in for a job in oil and gas? Since we deal in education and awareness raising when we talk to parents, when we talk to relatives, we can give them some advice on the advice that they can give to their children. And we do have some resources that we are always happy to share with the parents, with the guardians who come to our school. There are some careers guidance programs that they can take. Again, so this is the advice that we give. Take a career guidance test and take a career guidance program. Second of all, think about the future. And I'd like to remind you of the story of how these child prodigies were not always able to ever reach big heights in their future careers because they had a very low emotional intelligence. So they need to develop not only intellectual, but also emotional and social intellect. So our brain does not get old, it does not age, but it does become lazier. It's also important to keep up motivation, keep striving for something. And this is something that we can help our students in. It's somewhere we can lead by example. It's also important that academic achievement should be, one student's academic achievement should be compared with their own academic achievement, not with somebody else's. And if we recall the words of Albert Einstein, he believed that he did not have any special talents, but he did have curiosity and a tenacity together with a bit of self-criticism. And that is what helped him reach the goals that he reached, attain the things that he attained. And this is something that we can transmit to our students and their parents as well. I'm going to end with this. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer them.
Вы упоминали в своей речи, что есть фонд уроков, способствующий профориентации. Можно ссылочку на него?
Ссылку вам пришлем. Это
So
именно
in your speech, you mentioned some resources that were available, and Ms. Julie is saying that she will provide those links. So on behalf of the online team, we'd like to thank you for this presentation, and our colleagues would really like a copy of your presentation to read through it once more. Yes, I'm very happy if you found this useful. I wanted to give you some practical advice on how we can talk to parents and ultimately help our graduates, how we can help them make the decision of which profession to choose. At our school, we have a careers guidance program. It is a bit difficult to work with it now because it's a EU program, but hopefully we'll also be able to share that resource with you. Do you have any more questions?
No, it has to go to Zoom through the microphone.
Sorry, I'll ask in English. From what age should parents start to train or move their child towards a certain profession? If they notice, for example, if your child is leaning more on the more intellectual, more, how do you?
Okay, I can answer.
Вопрос был, да, с какого возраста нужно начинать уже направлять детей в определенную профессию, в определенную
So
сферу?
from what age should we start directing a child towards this or that profession?
Только очень чуть-чуть, потому что уже мы уже в перемене.
Just very, very briefly, because it's time for the coffee break. There are different approaches. There are different ways of approaching this. So we use the theory of Rubinstein that goes, every child should try different professions in order to find which is the most suitable for them. So this is the foundation of careers guidance. The issue with this theory is that when the scholar came up with this theory, there were only about 30 professions available. Now, when we have 7,000 professions, no single organization can provide their students with an opportunity to try out all 7,000 professions. That would take up all of their time and more. So that's not going to work. Today, a better way to do this is through careers testing. There's a certain testing program that we use in our school. It can be used with students aged 6 and above. It helps identify students' natural talents. Using this tool, they can identify which strengths they have, and on the basis of this, they can start working towards making a choice, making a decision regarding which direction they would like to develop in. So, of course, when we're talking about a child at 6 years old, we're not talking about their ability for this or that profession. We're talking about their leanings, their inclinations, their interest. Because if there's interest, then you can do very much.